Dad, you deserve a break. That's what my son told me as he handed me an envelope with 2 tickets. Take Lorenzo with you. It will do you good to get out a little. I thought it was a beautiful gesture. 2 old friends, 2 widowers, ready to laugh again. But when we tried to return, the airport counter told us something I will never forget. Sirs, your return tickets never existed. And that day, I understood that sometimes the most expensive trips are not paid for with money. If this story moves you, subscribe. Every day there is a new story that could change the way you see the world. Tell us where you are watching from. My name is Robert Landeta Robles. I am 78 years old and have a memory that still works better than my knees. And what I am about to tell you started as a gift, a beautiful gesture, an act of love that I had waited for through 2 years of loneliness. It was a Sunday in June, Father's Day, when my son Julian invited me to dinner at his apartment. He hadn't invited me to anything in months. I put on my only suit, the same one I wore to Emily's funeral, and I was as excited as a child. Lorenzo, my neighbor and best friend, was also invited by his son, Oscar. They are going to celebrate us together, Lorenzo told me in the elevator. Can you imagine? I smiled. For the first time in years, I felt that perhaps my prayers had been heard. Maybe my son finally saw me again. Julian's apartment was huge, with floor-to-ceiling windows and white furniture that felt scary to even touch. There was a long table decorated with candles and flowers, and a blonde woman I didn't know was pouring wine into crystal glasses. Dad, this is Delilah, my fiancée. We are getting married soon. She shook my hand without smiling, her nails painted bright red. Oscar, Lorenzo's son, was also there, a thin man in a dark suit with a serious face. The 4 of us sat down for dinner, me, Lorenzo, Julian, and Oscar. Delilah served the food as if she owned the place. It was chicken in a sauce that didn't taste like much, but I ate it eagerly because it had been so long since I had dinner with my son. Lorenzo also ate slowly, looking at his son with that mix of love and pain that only abandoned fathers understand. And then, after the dessert, Julian and Oscar looked at each other and smiled. Dad, Julian said, standing up. Lorenzo. The 2 of them separated and pulled out 2 white envelopes from a drawer. We want to give you something. You have both suffered a lot with the loss of your wives. You have been lonely, and we believe you deserve a break. Oscar nodded. So we bought you a trip to Greece, 15 days, all expenses paid. Julian put the envelope in front of me. Oscar put the other in front of Lorenzo. We both opened them at the same time. Inside were plane tickets, hotel reservations, printed itineraries, Athens, Santorini, Mykonos, the places that Emily and I dreamed of visiting when we were young and thought we would have time. I felt something catch in my throat. It wasn't pure happiness. It was something more complicated. Gratitude mixed with surprise. And maybe, deep down, a small question. Why now? Lorenzo was crying. He cried openly with the tickets in his hand. Son, I don't know what to say. Oscar put his hand on his shoulder. Don't say anything, Dad. Just enjoy it. You both deserve it. I looked at Julian. He was looking at me with that smile he used when he was a kid, when he asked me for money for the movies or to go out with his friends. Thank you, son, I said. It's too much. It's not too much, he replied. It's the least I can do after everything you did for me. He hugged me. It was a quick hug, but I held him tight, because it had been so long since he hugged me. Delilah applauded from her seat. How sweet. You're going to have an incredible time. Lorenzo and I looked at each other from across the table. He was smiling. I was, too. But something in his eyes told me that he also felt that small discomfort, that little voice that whispers, "This is too good to be true." After dinner, while Lorenzo and I waited for the Uber outside the building, he said something to me. "Robert, don't you think it's weird?" I looked at him. "What is?" "That both of them gave us the same trip, the same dates, to the same place." I shrugged. "Maybe they planned it together. They are friends, aren't they?" Lorenzo nodded slowly. "Yes, that must be it." But neither of us sounded convinced. The Uber arrived and we got in silently. All the way home, I looked out the window thinking about Emily. How happy she would be if she knew that I was finally going to see Greece. And then I remembered something she once told me. Gifts without a reason always have a reason. I didn't understand what she meant then, but I would understand soon. A week later, Julian showed up at my house unannounced. He had his work briefcase and Delilah with him. "Dad, before the trip, I need you to sign some papers. It's the international health insurance, in case something happens to you over there." I took the papers. There were many, too many. "Is all this for the insurance?" Julian nodded. "It's protocol. That's how it works with international travel for people your age." Delilah sat on the sofa where Emily used to read, looking at her cell phone. I started signing. 1 sheet, 2, 5, 10. "Here too, Dad. And here. And here." I signed where he pointed because I trusted my son, because you trust your own flesh and blood. When I finished, Julian quickly put the papers in his briefcase. "Done. You are protected." He patted me on the shoulder. "You're going to have a lot of fun, Dad." And they left. Later, I found out that those papers were not insurance. They were powers of attorney. They were bank authorizations. They were my death sentence, signed by my own hand. The day of the flight arrived faster than I expected. Julian told me he would pick us up at 5 in the morning to take us to the airport. But at 4:30, a message came in. "Dad, I'm sorry. An emergency came up at the construction site. I sent Matthew. He will take you." Matthew is my grandson. He is 18 years old and is high-functioning autistic. He doesn't talk much, but when he talks, he says important things. He arrived in an Uber with eyes swollen as if he hadn't slept. All the way to the airport, he held my hand, tight, with desperation. Lorenzo was in the front, talking to the driver. I looked at Matthew. "Are you okay, son?" He didn't look at me. He just squeezed tighter. And when we got to the airport, when Lorenzo and I got out with our old suitcases, Matthew hugged me. He hugged me so hard that I felt his ribs against mine. "Grandpa," he whispered in my ear. "Count the days." He said it so softly that I almost didn't hear him. "What did you say?" But he was already back in the Uber. I saw him through the glass. He was crying. Lorenzo put his hand on my shoulder. "Does that kid know something? Something we don't see yet?" On the plane, Lorenzo and I toasted with those cheap whiskies they give you in small plastic cups. We were excited, scared too, because neither of us had left the United States in years. "Do you think Greece is as beautiful as in the pictures?" Lorenzo asked me. "More beautiful," I told him. Emily always said that Greece was the place where the gods fell in love. Lorenzo smiled. "My wife said it was the place where the sea kissed the sky." We toasted to them, to Emily, to Lorenzo's wife, to the loves that left and left us alone. And then Lorenzo said something that gave me a slight chill, but I still didn't understand why. "Robert, do you know how much a trip like this costs?" I looked at him. "No. Why?" He shrugged. because it must be a lot of dollars. We fell silent. The plane shook with turbulence. A flight attendant passed by, smiling, and I felt something in my stomach. Something that was neither hunger nor nerves. It was a question still without form. When we landed in Athens, the heat hit us like an oven. The airport was huge, full of people speaking languages that sounded like music. Lorenzo and I carried our suitcases with our backs hurting, following signs we didn't understand. A Greek taxi driver charged us €120 for a ride that we later found out should cost €30. The hotel was in an old neighborhood with cracked walls and a noisy elevator, but it had a window that overlooked the sea. And when I saw that blue sea shining under the sun, I felt something like peace. I threw my suitcase on the bed and took out my cell phone. I dialed Julian's number. I wanted to tell him that we had arrived safely, that Greece was beautiful. Thank you. The phone rang, and rang, and rang. Voicemail. Maybe he's busy, Lorenzo said, but he too had just tried to call Oscar, and he had also gone to voicemail. They must be sleeping, I said. But in New York it was 3 p.m. I didn't sleep that first night in Greece. I stood by the window watching the Aegean Sea shine under the moon, full like a black mirror. It was beautiful, so beautiful it hurt. Because Emily should be there with me. She should be holding my hand and telling me, "See, my love, I told you. The gods fell in love here." But she wasn't there. There was just me, a 78-year-old man in a country where I didn't speak the language, with a phone that kept dialing his son's number without getting an answer. Lorenzo was snoring in the next bed. I kept standing. And sometime in the early morning I whispered something I didn't want to admit. "Julian, why don't you answer?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, like so many others in my life. The next 3 days were perfect, too perfect. We visited the Acropolis and took photos with the Parthenon in the background. We ate at tavernas where the waiters treated us like family and gave us free ouzo. We tried Greek wine, olives that tasted of sun, feta cheese that melted in the mouth. Lorenzo laughed. Me too. For moments we forgot that we were widowers, that we were alone, that our children barely visited us. But every night, when we returned to the hotel, we tried to call. Julian didn't answer. Oscar either. The WhatsApp messages stayed with a double grey check, sent, but not read. "Maybe they don't have signal," Lorenzo said, but his voice sounded hollow. "Maybe they are busy," I said, but I didn't believe it anymore. On the third night, Lorenzo sat on his bed and looked at me with those tired eyes of a retired construction worker. "Robert, I think something is wrong." And I couldn't answer him, because I believed it too. On the last day before trying to go home, Lorenzo and I walked through the port of Athens. There were docked boats, fishermen yelling, seagulls flying over our heads. Everything smelled of salt and fresh fish. Lorenzo stopped in front of the sea. "Robert, do you think our sons love us?" The question hurt me like a rock in the stomach, because I had been asking myself that same question for 2 years every time Julian cancelled a visit, every time he hung up quickly, every time he saw me but didn't look at me. "Of course they love us," I told him, but my voice trembled. Lorenzo nodded without conviction. "You're right. It's just that—" He fell silent. He didn't finish the sentence, because we both knew what came after that. "It's just that." We walked back to the hotel in silence. We packed our bags. We went to bed early. The next day, we had to go to the airport. The next day, we would return to the United States. The next day, we would discover that the return tickets never existed and that our sons had sent us away to die far from home. Julian was born on a Tuesday in October when I was 33 years old and worked on a construction site putting up walls for people who would never know my name. Emily and I lived in a rented room where the bathroom was outside and the rats ran at night. When the nurse showed him to me through the glass of the newborn nursery, with his wrinkled face and closed fists, I felt something I had never felt: fear of not being enough. With my first paycheck after the birth, I went downtown and bought shoes for Julian, white, small, perfect. They cost me 2 days of work under the sun. When I put them on his tiny feet, Emily cried. "Keep them, my love," she told me, "so that when he is big, he knows where he comes from." I kept them in a shoebox in the closet, but last year, when Julian emptied my house because, according to him, I couldn't take care of myself anymore, that box disappeared. "What about the baby shoes?" I asked him. He didn't even look at me. "I don't know what you're talking about, Dad. You are old. You're confused." And I kept silent, because contradicting your son is admitting that you lost his respect. When Julian was 20 years old and wanted to study architecture, I sold my guitar. It was the only thing I had left of my father, a Spanish one with metal strings that sounded like a storm when you played it well. But the university cost more than I earned in a year. So one Saturday I went to a pawn shop downtown, one of those where they look at you as if you were trash. The guy behind the counter checked it and offered me $300. "It's worth more," I told him, my voice trembling. "Then don't sell it," he replied, shrugging. But I sold it, because it was that, or telling Julian that he couldn't study. Emily found me that night sitting on the patio with empty hands, looking at the place where I used to keep the guitar. She didn't say anything. She just sat next to me and held my hand. 5 years later, when Julian graduated, I was in the front row with my only ironed suit. He went up to the stage to receive his diploma. I stood up to applaud with tears streaming down my face. He saw me and kept walking without stopping. After the ceremony, I looked for him. He was taking photos with his friends. "Congratulations, son," I said. "Thanks, Dad," he replied without hugging me, and he left to celebrate with people who hadn't raised him. After graduating, Julian got a job at a prestigious firm and moved to an apartment in New York that I never saw because he never invited me. At first, he came every week to visit us, then every 2 weeks, then once a month. Emily always justified it while cooking food that he was no longer going to eat. He is building his future, my love. That's how it has to be. But I saw how his visits became shorter, his hugs quicker, his smiles emptier. One Sunday he came to eat and spent the whole time glued to his cell phone. Emily had spent the morning cooking turkey pot pie, his favorite dish since he was a child. He ate 3 bites and said he had to leave. "Already?" Emily asked, her voice broken. "I have a meeting, Mum. It's important." When he left, Emily stayed looking at the cold pot pie on the plate. "He doesn't like it anymore," she said almost in a whisper. "He does like it," I lied, touching her hand. But we both knew the truth. Julian no longer liked being with us. We were his poor past, and he wanted to erase us from his rich future. 5 years ago, Julian knocked on my door one Sunday at 10 in the morning without notice. I was still in my pajamas drinking coffee. He came in without greeting me with that urgent look that desperate people have. "Dad, I need $200,000. It's an investment, a unique opportunity. I'll give it back in 6 months, I swear." I had those savings hidden in a coffee can under the sink. It was the money of my whole life, every dollar saved with sacrifice, kept for emergencies. Emily looked at me from the kitchen with eyes full of worry. "But it was my son, and you don't say no to your son." I took out the can, counted the money, and gave it to him. He didn't even count it. He just put it in his backpack and gave me a quick hug that smelled of expensive cologne. Thanks, Dad. I'll give it back in 6 months, I promise. 6 months passed. Then a year, 2, 3, 5. One day I gathered the courage to ask him, Son, what about the investment? He looked at me as if I had insulted him. Are you seriously going to charge me, Dad, after everything I gave you? Emily grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing hard. Leave it, my love. And I left it. But something inside me broke that day, like glass that cracks but doesn't fall until you touch it. Emily didn't die of any illness. There was no hospital, no doctors, no beeping machines. She died on a Thursday in February, while I went to the market to do the weekly shopping. She didn't want to go. I'm going to stay reading for a while, my love, she told me with that soft smile she used when she was tired but happy. Take your time. Take the opportunity to walk. I left thinking how lucky I was to have a wife who, after 45 years, still smiled at me like that. The market was full. I bought everything we needed: tomatoes, onions, chicken, bread. I had a coffee at a stand because it was cold. When I returned, 2 hours later, I entered the house calling her. Emily, I'm home. Silence. I went to the living room and there she was, sitting in her wicker chair by the window with her favorite book in her hands, 100 Years of Solitude. It was open to the page she liked the most, the scene where Aureliano discovers the manuscript. Her hands were still holding the pages gently, like someone holding something sacred. Her head was resting on the backrest, and on her face there was a trace of a smile, a small, calm smile, as if she had finally found what she was looking for. The afternoon light came through the window, painting her face gold. I approached slowly. Emily? I touched her hand. It was cold. She had gone while reading the words she loved, surrounded by light, with a smile on her lips. And I wasn't there to say goodbye. But she left happy, reading her favorite romance, with the sun caressing her face, without pain, without fear. She simply fell asleep and never woke up. I called Julian, crying, Your mum died. I heard silence on the other side, then his shaky voice. I'm coming, Dad. I'm coming. He arrived 3 hours late. 3 hours in which I stayed sitting next to Emily, holding her hand, begging her to wake up even though I knew she wouldn't. When Julian finally came in, he didn't come directly to see her. First, he stood at the door looking at his cell phone. Then he approached slowly, looked at her for 2 seconds and started to cry. But I knew him. I had known him since he was a baby, and those tears were not of pain. They were of guilt. Guilt for not having visited her more, for not having called her more, for having let her die without telling her how much he loved her. And that guilt, instead of making him humble, made him cruel. At the funeral, while I was still watching them lower her coffin, Julian approached me and said, Dad, you should sell the house. It's too big for you alone. Emily had been buried for 2 hours, and my son was already thinking about money. The 2 years after the funeral were the longest of my life. The house became a museum of ghosts. Emily's perfume was still on the curtains, her shampoo in the bathroom, her hand cream on the dresser, her toothbrush next to mine. I couldn't throw anything away because everything was a part of her that I could still touch. Sleeping in our bed was impossible, too big, too empty. So I slept on the sofa with the TV on so as not to hear the silence. Lorenzo visited me every week. We came from the same pain. His wife had died 6 months after Emily. We sat on the patio playing dominoes without enthusiasm, drinking warm beer until the sun went down and we no longer had to pretend we were okay. Julian showed up every 2 months, always in a hurry, always checking his cell phone. And a year ago, he arrived with Delilah. He didn't introduce her formally, he just said, "This is Delilah," like someone introducing a new work tool. She sat on the sofa where Emily used to read, without asking permission, without taking off her shoes, and I felt that something sacred in my house had been profaned. Lorenzo told me about his pain on Sundays, when we had drunk enough beer for the words to come out on their own. My son never hugged me, Robert. Not once, not even when he was a child. Oscar was always cold, calculating, empty inside. When his mother died, he arrived at the hospital in his black accountant's suit, signed papers with the doctors, organized everything with cold efficiency, like someone closing a business deal. He never cried. Lorenzo cried alone in the waiting room, while the nurses cleaned the room where his wife had just died. I asked him why he wasn't crying, Lorenzo told me, his voice broken. And he told me, "Crying won't bring her back, Dad. You have to be practical." Practical. That word kept spinning in my head for days, because Julian was also practical, too practical, as if love were an unnecessary expense, as if we were an old problem that had to be solved. One day, drinking coffee in my kitchen, I told Lorenzo something I had never given importance to. "Did you know that Emily inherited a plot of land in Brooklyn from her father? We never sold it because she wanted to leave it to Julian when we were gone." Lorenzo slowly put his cup on the table. "How much is it worth?" I shrugged. "I don't know. It's an old lot with overgrown grass and trash, but it's in a good area." Lorenzo looked at me fixedly. "Robert, Julian knows about that lot." I thought. Yes, Julian knew. Emily had mentioned it to him years ago, but he never brought it up in conversation. He never asked how much it was worth. He never showed interest. Until now. "Why do you ask?" I said. Lorenzo shook his head. "Because my house in Los Angeles is also worth dollars. A lot of dollars. And Oscar has been asking about it lately. Too much." We fell silent. The coffee cooled in our cups, and although neither of us said it out loud, we both understood something horrible. Our sons did not give us a trip out of love. They sent us away for money. A week before she died, Emily had a bad day. She was tired, confused, saying things that didn't make much sense. I thought it was the exhaustion of old age. She called me with a weak voice from her chair. "Robert." I ran to sit next to her. She held my hand with surprising strength. Her eyes, those brown eyes that had seen me young and had seen me grow old, were tearful. "The important papers," she told me, breathing with difficulty. "They are put away in the Bible, in my dresser." She fell asleep suddenly, with my hand still in hers. I thought she was delirious, that tiredness made her say nonsense. I never looked for those papers. I never opened the Bible. When she died a week later, I put the Bible in a box along with her clothes, her creams, her reading glasses, everything that still smelled like her. And I put the box in the back of the closet, where I wouldn't see it every day, and break down. Now, from Greece, I think about that Bible every day. What papers? Why did she mention them? And why did I never listen to her? On the plane to Greece, while the clouds passed beneath us like cotton mountains, I closed my eyes and heard Emily's voice again. "The important papers. They are in the Bible." Lorenzo slept next to me with his mouth open and his hands crossed over his belly. I thought about everything we had left behind. The house, the memories, Emily's grave that I wouldn't visit for 2 weeks. I felt guilty, as if I were abandoning her. But Lorenzo had told me at the airport, "Brother, our wives would want us to do this, to live. And he was right. Emily always wanted me to see Greece. Now, finally, I was doing it, thanks to Julian. My son had given me this gift, and when I returned, I was going to thank him properly. I was going to look for those papers Emily mentioned. I was going to put my life in order. Lorenzo woke up and looked at me. "What are you thinking about?" "That we are lucky, brother," I told him. "Our sons gave us a second chance to be happy." Lorenzo smiled. "Yes, we are lucky." And at that moment, 30,000 feet above the Atlantic, flying towards a country we didn't know, with return tickets that we would soon discover never existed, we both truly believed it. The first days in Greece were an explosion of sensations. The white streets of Santorini shone under the sun as if someone had painted them that morning. It smelled of olive oil and oregano from the open tavernas. Lorenzo and I sat in a restaurant overlooking the cliff, trying to pronounce Efcharisto to thank the waiter. The waiter laughed tenderly and brought us ouzo without asking. "To the old men who still know how to laugh," he said, raising his glass. "We toast." The ouzo burned, but it warmed the chest. Lorenzo was smiling. Me too. For a moment I forgot that my sons weren't answering the phone. For a moment I was happy, but it was a fragile happiness, like glass that you know is going to break. The next day we met Nicholas at the port of Athens. We were lost when a huge man with prison tattoos approached us. "Do you need help, grandpas?" He had a scarred face and scars that told violent stories. Lorenzo and I got nervous, but he smiled, showing gold teeth. "Don't be scared. My name is Nick." He helped us with the suitcases and talked to the taxi driver so he wouldn't rip us off. "You're Americans, right?" "I love Elvis Presley. I watched all his movies in prison." He gave us his number on a crumpled paper. "If you need anything, call me." The old guys look out for each other. 3 nights later, we found Nick at the same port drinking raki. He invited us to join him. We drank as the sun went down. Nick told us without being asked. "I spent 15 years in prison. I killed the man who raped my daughter. She was 17. He paused for a long time. "I got out 10 years ago. My daughter doesn't talk to me. She says I ruined her life by forcing her to remember. But I know I did the right thing." Lorenzo said something that chilled me. Sons forget quickly, don't they? They forget what we did for them, but they never forget what we didn't do. Nick nodded. Sons are selfish. All of them, without exception. Every night I dialed Julian's number. Every night. Ring, ring, voicemail. Lorenzo couldn't reach Oscar either. The WhatsApp messages remained with a double grey check. Sent, but not read. On the 4th day I wrote him. "Son, I'm worried. Are you okay? Answer me, even with a yes." The message never turned blue. Lorenzo tried the same. Same result. We looked at our phones like time bombs. "Robert," Lorenzo said in a trembling voice, "something is very wrong." I nodded. Our sons were not busy. They were not without signal. They simply didn't want to talk to us. And that was worse than any emergency. On the 5th day, we went to an internet cafe. We paid $2 each. I opened my email. There was a message from the bank sent 3 days ago. "Dear Mr. Landita, your account has been closed at the request of the authorized co-signer. The balance was transferred according to the co-signer's instructions." I read it 3 times. "What co-signer? I am the account holder," I said out loud. Lorenzo stopped breathing. "Robert, me too." He showed me his screen. The same message. We stood looking at the screens in silence. The coffee smelled burned. The Greek music kept playing. But our world had just completely collapsed. We ran to the American consulate. The same official as before attended to us with annoyance. "You two again?" I showed her the bank message. "They closed my account. I didn't authorize anything." She read it without interest. "You have to take that up with your bank in New York." "But I'm in Greece," I yelled. People turned around. "I can't go to the bank." She sighed with false patience. "Sir, perhaps your family closed the account for you. It's common in people your age to protect you from bad decisions." Lorenzo grabbed the counter. "Protect us from what?" She shrugged. "From yourselves. You know how it is." We left feeling like trash, like useless old men who can no longer take care of themselves. That night, at 11 o'clock, my cell phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Grandpa?" It was Matthew, his voice terrified. "I can't talk much. Dad said I can't call you. But I have to tell you, he and Delilah are selling the house. Your house. Buyers have already come by. Dad said you gave him permission, but I know it's not true." The call cut off. "Matthew?" I dialed back. "The number is not available. I tried 5 times. Nothing." Lorenzo was looking at me. "What happened?" I told him. He turned pale and looked at his messages. "Robert, look. A message from Oscar. Dad, I put the house up for sale. It's for your future medical expenses. Enjoy Greece." Lorenzo was hyperventilating. "I don't have medical expenses. I didn't talk about anything with him." We sat on our beds, finally understanding the truth. Our sons didn't send us on vacation out of love. They sent us away to empty us, to rob us while we were gone, to erase us from our own lives. "The closed accounts, the unanswered phones, the gifted tickets," I said, putting the puzzle together. "They got us out of the way." Lorenzo cried. "But why?" "We gave them everything. I had no answer, only rage, a cold rage growing in my chest. "Tomorrow we try to go back," I said, but a little voice whispered, "What if they don't let us return?" We didn't sleep that night. At 3 in the morning, we went for a walk through Athens, empty streets, a few drunks. The two of us lost where we didn't speak the language. "Do you think we can go back?" Lorenzo asked. "We have return tickets," I lied. But I remembered that I had never checked them well. "What if they were fake, too?" "They sent us here so we wouldn't be in the way," Lorenzo said. "While we ate olives, they sold everything." The next day we went to the Acropolis. Robert looked at the Parthenon for 10 minutes in silence. "This place is 2,000 years old. It saw empires fall, and it is still here. Broken, but here. I am also going to fall, but I am not going to turn into dust. Not yet." In the taxi to the airport, Lorenzo said, "If something goes wrong, these days with you have been the best of my life." I hugged him. "We are going back. I promise you." But I knew I was lying. The Athens airport was a human anthill. Happy families, couples kissing, children running. And us, 2 old men with worn suitcases and fear in our stomachs. The line took 40 minutes. During that time, I mentally went over everything. Passport, ticket, identification, everything in order. "See, Lorenzo, everything is going to be fine," I said, but his hands were trembling. When we reached the counter, a young employee greeted us with a professional smile. "Passports and tickets, please." We handed her everything. She scanned the tickets. She frowned. She scanned again. The frown deepened. "1 moment, please." She called on the radio. Lorenzo looked at me. "What's happening?" In my stomach, I already knew. A supervisor arrived. A 50-year-old Greek man, prominent belly, tired face. The employee spoke to him in Greek, pointing to the screen. The man checked our tickets against a light. Then he looked at us. In his eyes I saw pity. That pity they look at you with when you are old, when you are a problem. "Gentlemen, we have a problem," he said in English. He put the tickets on the counter as evidence of a crime. "Your return tickets are not validated in our system." I felt the floor open up. "What do you mean they are not?" My voice sounded sharp. "They do not appear as purchased tickets. They are counterfeits, or they were cancelled." Lorenzo grabbed the counter. "But it's printed. It has my name." The supervisor nodded. "Yes, sir, but the paper means nothing if it is not in the system." The line behind us grew, murmurs. A man yelled in Greek. A woman with a baby pushed us. "Excuse me." All eyes on us, annoyance. "These old guys are in the way." Lorenzo was shaking. "Please, there must be a mistake. Our sons bought these tickets, Julian Landeta and Oscar Rivera. Call them." The supervisor shook his head. "I can't call the United States. What I can do is inform you that you need to buy new tickets." He said the price. 2,400 euros. Lorenzo let out a sound that was almost a cry. The supervisor was already ignoring us. "Next, please." We moved to the side. The line continued without us. Happy families getting on planes, and us, invisible. With fake tickets. "I'm going to pay with a card," I said, pulling out my wallet, trembling. We went to another counter. The employee scanned. Declined. "Do you have another one?" I took out the emergency one. Declined. Lorenzo took out his. Declined. Another. Declined. All rejected. I felt real nausea. "Call your bank, sir." We found a corner near the restrooms. It smelled of disinfectant and despair. I dialed the bank. "International line. 5 minutes on hold." "How may I help you?" I explained quickly. Typing. Silence. "Mr. Landeta, your account was closed 2 weeks ago." "By whom?" "By the authorized cosigner." Something in my chest broke. "I am the only account holder." "Sir, your son Julian was added in January of 2023. Full authorization." 2023. The insurance papers. "And my money?" "Transferred to the account of Julian Landeta Sepulveda." I hung up. Lorenzo was sitting on the floor. People passed by, avoiding him like an obstacle. I sat down next to him. "Lorenzo, call Oscar." He dialed from my phone. Oscar answered on the third ring. Calm voice. "Hello?" "Son," Lorenzo said, breaking down. "I can't return. The tickets don't work. What happened to my account?" Silence. Then Oscar's voice, cold as ice. "Dad, we already talked about this. I needed that money for your future expenses. You are old. You can't take care of yourself. It's better this way." "Better?" Lorenzo shouted. "I'm stranded in Greece without money." Oscar sighed. "Relax. Enjoy a few more days. You'll find a way. I have to hang up. I'm busy." He hung up. Lorenzo fell to his knees right there in the middle of the airport and cried like a lost child. We didn't have money for a hotel. Between the two of us, $200. Enough to eat for 4 days if we were careful. But not hotel and food. We decided to stay at the airport. Metal benches near Gate 7. Benches with armrests, so you can't lie down. Lorenzo was shaking with cold. I gave him my jacket. 3 in the morning, a guard approached. I thought he would kick us out. He just looked at us with pity. Okay? I nodded. Okay. He continued his rounds. 5 in the morning, a Greek family woke us up. They gave us 2 breads wrapped in a napkin. For you. I wanted to cry. Lorenzo couldn't eat. He just looked at the bread. My son did this to me. My son. 3 days sleeping in the airport. 3 days eating stale bread and what we found in the trash when no one was looking. I, who built houses with these hands, looking for food in airport trash. Lorenzo no longer spoke much. He just stared into space. I tried to stay strong for both of us, but inside I was breaking. Every night I thought about Julian, his face when he gave me the envelope, his quick hug, his "You deserve it, Dad, deserve it." And I understood. That hug was a farewell, a disguised goodbye. He never wanted me to return. He sent me to Greece to die, far from home, far from anyone who could help me. While I died here, he sold everything. If you have ever been made to feel invisible, if you have ever trusted someone who betrayed you, if everything has been taken from you, leaving you with nothing, then you understand how I felt. But stay with me, because what comes next is worse, much worse, but it is also better. This story doesn't end in that airport. It is just beginning, and what Lorenzo and I did next is what you have to hear. On the 3rd day, a different guard approached. He had a local newspaper. He put it in front of us, pointing to the cover. There we were, Lorenzo and I. Someone had photographed us sleeping. The headline was in Greek, but there was a photo. Old suitcases, tired faces, dirty clothes. The guard tried to translate with broken English. Sons, leave, old, die. Lorenzo looked at the photo and cried again. But I didn't cry. I understood something. Now we were news. Now we were a scandal. Now we were evidence. If our sons wanted to kill us in silence, we had just ruined their plan. Everyone was watching us, and when everyone watches you, it is harder to make you disappear. I kept the newspaper. Lorenzo, we are leaving here. Where to? I took out the paper where Nick wrote his number. To look for help. After a week sleeping on metal benches, the security guards kicked us out of the airport. You can't live here, they said, without looking us in the eyes. Where were we going? We didn't know. We walked through Athens with our suitcases. Lorenzo was dragging his because he couldn't carry it anymore. I didn't have the strength either. 78 and 76 years old, walking aimlessly in a strange country. Every step hurt. My knees, my back, my feet swollen inside shoes that no longer fit. People avoided us in the streets as if we were trash, as if we were invisible. And perhaps we were. 2 old Americans that their own sons had turned into ghosts. We spent the first night on the street under a bridge near the port. It smelled of urine and rotten trash. We heard rats running near our heads. Lorenzo was trembling, not just from the cold, from fear, from humiliation. I hugged him to give him warmth, even though I was also freezing. Robert, he whispered in the darkness, we are going to die like this, like dogs on the street. I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to promise him that everything would be okay, but the words wouldn't come out, because I didn't know if we were going to survive either. I kept silent, hugging my friend while the rats squeaked and the cold bit our bones. And I thought about Julian sleeping in his warm bed while his father slept under a bridge. On the 2nd day, we met a group of Syrian refugees who slept under the same bridge. There were 5 men of different ages, all with the same empty look of those who have lost everything. One of them approached us when he saw us sharing a piece of stale bread. Are you Americans? He asked in English. His name was Bashir. He had learned Spanish working in a restaurant in Barcelona before being deported. "What are you doing here?" I didn't have the strength to lie. "Our sons abandoned us. They sent us to Greece and left us without money to return." Bashir nodded as if he understood perfectly. "Sons forget," he said. "They forget where they come from. They forget who raised them. But God does not forget. God is watching them." That night, Bashir and his friends shared their food with us, leftovers from a restaurant that they had taken from the trash. One morning, Lorenzo couldn't get up. He had a high fever and was shaking uncontrollably. "Robert, I'm so cold." I don't know how I managed it, but I carried him on my back and walked 4 miles to a public hospital. He weighed less than before, but I almost fainted 3 times. At the hospital, they made us wait 5 hours. When they finally saw us, a young doctor checked his temperature and pulse. "He has an infection. He needs antibiotics, rest, and nutritious food." They gave him only acetaminophen. "It's the only thing we can give for free," the nurse said. On the way back, I passed a market. I saw oranges in a basket. I looked around. No one was looking. I stole an orange, the first time I had stolen in 78 years of life. I cried as I walked with the orange hidden in my shirt. I cried as I gave it to Lorenzo. "Eat, brother." He ate, crying too. On the 5th day on the street, I managed to call the consulate from a payphone using my last coins. This time, a different official answered, younger, kinder. "Mr. Landeta, I read about your case in the newspaper. We are investigating, but these processes are slow. I need you to file a formal complaint." "How long does it take?" I asked. "It can take months," she replied. "Months?" My voice broke. "Ma'am, my friend is going to die. We don't have food. We don't have a home. We don't have anything." I heard her uncomfortable silence on the other side. "I am very sorry, sir. I will do what I can to speed up the process." She hung up. I stood in front of the payphone, feeling how my last hopes were slipping through my fingers. One afternoon, walking downtown, I saw myself reflected in a store window. I didn't recognize myself. The man in the reflection had an overgrown beard full of grime, dirty clothes that smelled of stale sweat, eyes sunken in dark sockets. He looked like one of those homeless people I used to see in New York and to whom I would give a few coins, feeling pity. Now I was that homeless person. "I built buildings," I said out loud. "I put up walls with these hands. I worked 50 years, and now I'm looking for food in the trash." I knelt down in that corner and cried. I cried without caring who saw me. An 8-year-old Greek boy walked by with his mother. He saw me crying. He let go of his mother's hand, approached me, and gave me a €1 coin. "For food," he said. His mother quickly pulled him away, but that coin in my hand weighed more than any burden I had carried in my life. That night, under the bridge, Lorenzo spoke in a low voice. The fever had gone down, but he was still weak. "Robert, I never told you, but I have to tell you now." He paused for a long time. "Oscar is not my biological son. His mother had an affair when we had been married for 3 years. She confessed to me when she was pregnant, but I decided to raise him as mine. I registered him with my last name. I gave him all my love." His voice broke. "And now I understand why he never loved me, why he never hugged me, why his eyes were always empty when he looked at me. He knew I wasn't his blood father." I hugged Lorenzo in that darkness that smelled of misery. "Lorenzo, listen to me. That doesn't matter. You are his father. You always were. The one who raised him, the one who fed him, the one who loved him. That makes you his father more than any blood." One afternoon, Walking through the port looking for food scraps in the closed restaurants, we heard a familiar voice. Americans! It was Nick. He was unloading boxes from a ship. When he saw us, he dropped everything. He ran towards us. His face changed when he saw us. What happened? Why are you like this? I was so ashamed that I couldn't speak. But Lorenzo told him everything. The airport, the fake tickets, the emptied accounts, the streets, the hunger. Nick listened without interrupting. When Lorenzo finished, Nick put his huge hands on our shoulders. Come with me, now. We can't bother you, I said. It's not a bother. It's an obligation. Among betrayed old men, we have to take care of each other. We walked behind him towards his truck. For the first time in days, I felt something like hope. Nick's house was small in the suburbs. 2 bedrooms, peeling walls, old but clean furniture. He gave us clean clothes that were too big for us. He prepared hot food for us, lentil soup, fresh bread, olives. Lorenzo and I cried, eating. We didn't remember the taste of hot food. Then he showed us a room with 2 beds and sheets that smelled of detergent. Rest. We'll talk tomorrow. Before leaving, he said something. My children also abandoned me. After I got out of prison, they never wanted to see me again. But I didn't give up. I got back what was mine. And you are not going to give up either. That night we slept in beds for the first time in 2 weeks. And although we were shattered, for the first time I thought, maybe we can go back. Maybe we can get revenge. The next morning, Nick showed us a box with newspaper clippings. I was also betrayed by my family. My brother kept my father's inheritance while I was in prison. But I got everything back. And I'm going to teach you how. I looked at Nick and understood. This man was not an angel. He was an avenger. And we had just found our teacher. Nick had contacts, people who owed him favors, ex-cons, lawyers who worked in grey areas, a hacker who lived in a basement and hadn't seen the sun for years. Give me the full names of your sons, dates of birth, addresses, any paper you have. We gave him everything. Our IDs, the fake tickets, the WhatsApp messages, everything. Nick put everything in a yellow folder and disappeared. 2 days without seeing him, Lorenzo and I stayed in his house, eating, resting, regaining strength. On the 3rd day, Nick returned. He brought a thick folder. He sat in front of us at his kitchen table. Sit down properly, he said, because what I'm going to show you is going to hurt. It's going to hurt so much that you'll wish you hadn't known. But you need to know everything if you want to get yours back. He opened the folder, and our world collapsed again. Nick took out documents one by one, putting them on the table. Property deeds, bank transfers, powers of attorney, all with our signatures. But I didn't recognize my signature on some. This document says that you, Robert, sold your house in March. I froze. But I was in Greece in March. Nick nodded. Exactly. And this one says that Lorenzo transferred his entire savings account on March 10. Lorenzo looked at the date. I was also in Greece that day. Nick gave a bitter smile. That's why they sent you in February, so you wouldn't be around when they counterfeited the signatures. He pointed to a name on the documents. This was done by a notary. Her name is Elsa Moore. She has an office in Brooklyn. She charges $50,000 for each fake document. She's Delilah's friend. The air in the kitchen felt heavy. Everything was planned, I whispered. Everything. Nick began to explain the complete plan step by step. Julian and Oscar met 2 years ago in a Facebook group called Sons of Seniors with Property. It's a closed group where scumbag sons share strategies to keep their parents' money. I felt nauseous. Delilah is the one who connected them. She is not just an influencer. She is a professional scammer. She has done this before with at least 3 other older men. Always the same pattern. She becomes the girlfriend of a son with an elderly father. She convinces the son to get the father out of the way. They counterfeit documents. They sell properties. They disappear. Lorenzo asked, "And Oscar?" Oscar is an accountant. He moved all the money to ghost accounts. And Julian is an architect. He appraised the properties to sell them quickly below the real value. That way no one asks questions. Nick took out more papers. They worked together like professionals, like a criminal enterprise. Nick put a special document in front of me. "The lot that Emily left you in Brooklyn." I looked at it. It was an official appraisal. I read the number. It couldn't be true. $15 million. My voice barely came out. Nick nodded. $15 million. That's why they sent you away. If you had found out the real value, you would never have signed anything. He turned to Lorenzo. "Your house in Los Angeles is worth $8 million. Lorenzo turned pale. $8 million? And Oscar already sold it. 3 weeks ago. For $6 million. He kept everything." Lorenzo began to cry. Me too. Nick put his hand on the table. "But there is good news. The sales were illegal. We can get everything back. But first you need to know how much damage they really did." Nick took out his laptop and showed us screenshots of WhatsApp conversations. "A friend of mine hacked Julian's phone," Lorenzo asked. "Is that legal?" Nick smiled. "No, but counterfeiting signatures isn't legal either." He began to read the messages between Julian and Delilah. One said, "Matthew suspects. I found him looking through my papers last night." Delilah's response, "Lock him in his room, take his cell phone away. He can't talk to anyone until the old man is dead or disappeared." I felt something inside me break. My grandson, my Matthew, they locked him up because of me. I kept reading. Another message from Julian. "What if he tries to escape?" Delilah. "Tie him up if necessary. He is autistic. No one will believe him if he says anything." I threw up. Right there in Nick's kitchen. I threw up from rage, from pain, from impotence. Nick closed the laptop and took something out of his backpack. A small black device. "This is a recording. My contact at a Greek phone company got it. It's illegal. It can't be used in court. But you need to hear it." He pressed play. It was Matthew's call, his scared voice. "Grandpa, Dad said I can't talk to you." And then the cut. But it didn't end there. After the cut, a door was heard opening violently, Julian's voice shouting, "Who the hell did you call?" Matthew crying. "No one, Dad, I swear." A hit. A cry of pain. "Matthew. No. Dad. Please." Another hit. Another cry. The recording ended. Lorenzo and I were frozen. "My son," I said. "My son hit my grandson." Nick turned off the device. "Your son is a monster. Both of them are." Nick took a deep breath. "There's something else. Something I didn't expect to find." He looked me straight in the eyes. "Robert, I investigated your whole story. Family, records, everything. And I found something. You have a sister, Bernice Landaeta Robles." The world stopped. "Bernice, how do you know that name? She disappeared 30 years ago. Everyone thought she was dead." "Your family gave her up for lost." Tears were already running down my face. "But she's not dead. She is alive. And she lives in Crete. 2 hours from here." I couldn't breathe. My sister is alive. Nick nodded. And she has information about your family, information that Julian never wanted you to know. Lorenzo grabbed my hand. Robert, you have to go see her. The next day, Nick drove us in his truck to Crete, 2 hours driving on roads next to the sea. We arrived at a small house with white walls and blue windows facing the beach. Nick knocked on the door. A woman opened it, 52 years old, the same face as my mother, the same eyes as my father. Bernice looked at me. I looked at her. 30 years of silence between us. Robert, she asked in a trembling voice. I couldn't speak, just cry. She came out and hugged me. The 2 oldest people left in our family hugging after 3 decades. I thought you were dead, I managed to say. I thought you had forgotten about me, she replied, crying. Nick and Lorenzo left us alone. We went into her house, and my sister began to tell me her story. Bernice had fled the United States because her husband beat her. He almost killed me one night. I managed to escape. I took a plane. I changed my name. I never went back. She wiped her tears. 10 years ago, I tried to contact you. I found your house phone number, but the person who answered was Julian. I told him who I was. I asked to speak with you. He told me, my father doesn't want to know anything about you. You hurt the family a lot by running away. Leave us alone. The rage burned me. He erased you from my life. Yes, Bernice said, and now I understand why. Because I am an international lawyer. I work for the European Union on financial fraud cases. If I had been in your life, Julian would never have been able to rob you. She stood up and went for her laptop. Nick told me everything, and if what he investigated is true, your son and Oscar are going to prison. But I need all the evidence. Nick smiled. Evidence is all I have. Bernice opened her laptop and started working. Calls to New York, emails to prosecutors, contacts at Interpol. I watched her work and thought, my lost sister is saving me. But then she said something. Robert, there's something else. Emily wrote to me before she died. She sent me a package. She asked me that if something happened to you, to give it to you. She said, if Julian betrays me, give this to Robert. I have that package. Do you want to see it? Bernice, Nick, and a Greek lawyer named Dimitri planned everything at the kitchen table. We will get the tickets, but we won't tell anyone. You have to arrive in New York like ghosts, without warning, without alerting them. I need Julian and Oscar to feel safe until the last moment. Dimitri was a specialist in international fraud. I have seen cases like this before. The important thing is that you arrive when they are relaxed, when they think they have won. Bernice marked dates on a calendar. December 15 is Oscar's birthday. According to my contact, it is going to be a big party. His whole family will be there, all the witnesses. Robert and Lorenzo looked at each other. We are going to look him in the eyes, Robert said, and we are going to get back what is ours. Bernice took out a yellowish envelope from a safe deposit box. It was sealed with old adhesive tape. Emily sent me this 3 weeks before she died. She wrote to me, if something happens to me, give this to Robert, but only if Julian betrays me. She put the envelope in front of me. My hands were trembling so much that I could barely open it. Inside were photos. Julian entering a casino, Julian signing papers with suspicious people, debt documents, and in the back, carefully folded, a handwritten letter in Emily's shaky handwriting. I took it out. The paper still smelled of her gardenia perfume. I started reading, and with each line I felt that something inside me was breaking and rebuilding at the same time, stronger, harder, more dangerous. Emily's letter said, My love, if you are reading this, it is because I am no longer here, and because our son showed his true colours. Forgive me for not telling you before, but Julian is not who you think he is. He has gambling debts, millions of dollars. He bet at casinos, on fights, on races. He lost everything. He came to ask me for the Brooklyn lot 6 months ago. I told him no, that that lot was for you, for your future. He got furious. He threatened me. He told me, if you don't give me that lot, I will solve things my way. I am scared, Robert, but I also left evidence. In the Bible that is on my dresser, there is a USB stick hidden in the lining. Everything is there. Photos, videos, documents. Use it if something happens to me. I love you. I always loved you. Emily. The letter fell from my hands. Lorenzo picked it up and read it. When he finished, he looked at me with eyes full of tears, but they were not tears of sadness. They were of pure rage. I read the letter 3 times. Each time the words hurt more. He threatened her, I said out loud. My son threatened Emily while she was dying. While I worked to feed her, he was threatening her to rob her. I clenched my fists so hard that my nails dug into my palms. Lorenzo put his hand on my shoulder. Nick approached and put his hand on mine too. That's why we are going to destroy him, Nick said. But with the law, not with violence. With the law, because the law is going to put him in a place where he will pay every day for every tear he caused you. Bernice nodded. You are going to see him fall, Robert. I promise you. And you are going to see him from above, you standing, him on the ground, as it should be. Bernice bought the plane tickets that same afternoon. Tourist class. Departure on December 14. They would arrive in New York on the night of the 14th, rest, and on the 15th at night, they would go to Oscar's birthday party. She showed the invitation that her contact had intercepted on her laptop. Look, big celebration. Oscar Rivera's house. 8 p.m. Dress code. Elegant. It will be full of people. Friends, family, acquaintances, all the witnesses we need. Robert smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in months. But it wasn't a warm smile. It was a cold smile. A scary smile. Perfect, he said. I want there to be witnesses. I want the whole world to see them fall. The following days were for preparation. Bernice trained us as if we were actors. You can't cry when you see them. You can't scream. You can't show emotion. You have to enter as if you had been on a happy vacation, smiling, relaxed. Because I need them to give themselves away. If you arrive furious, they will defend themselves. But if you arrive calm, they will confess, thinking they can still manipulate you. Lorenzo asked in a trembling voice, What if they attack us? What if they try to hurt us? Nick stood up. I am going with you, and I'm not going alone. 3 of my friends are going to accompany us. Ex-Greek Marines, who now work as private security. No one is going to touch a hair on your head, Bernice added. And the police will be waiting outside. When I give the signal, they will enter and arrest all of them. The days leading up to the trip, Robert felt something he hadn't felt since before Emily died. Purpose, reason to live. Lorenzo felt it too. They went together to a Greek barber who cut their hair and shaved their beards. Then they went to a market where they bought cheap but decent suits, black, tie, polished shoes. They tried everything on in front of a mirror. We are going to return as kings, brother, Lorenzo said. As kings who come to reclaim their kingdom. They hugged, they cried, they laughed. For the first time in months, they felt alive. Not just surviving, living, with purpose, with a future, with revenge waiting for them on the other side of the ocean. 2 days before the trip, Bernice received a call. Robert and Lorenzo were packing their bags when they heard Bernice screaming in Greek from her office. She came out with her cell phone in her hand. Her face was pale. "Robert, sit down." "What happened?" "Sit down, please." I sat down. Lorenzo, too. Bernice took a deep breath. "My contact in New York just sent me information. Matthew is in the hospital." I felt the world stop. "What?" Bernice began to show me photos on her cell phone. Matthew in a hospital bed, connected to machines, bruises on his face, eyes closed. Delilah hit him. She pushed him down the stairs. He's in a coma. He's been like this for 3 days. I stood up. "I have to go. I have to go now." Bernice grabbed my arm. "Robert, wait. Listen to me." But I didn't want to listen. I wanted to run. I wanted to fly. I wanted to be with my grandson. Bernice held me tightly. "If you go now, Julian will know you are alive. He will move all the money to accounts where we will never find it. He will hide the evidence. He will destroy everything we have against him. And then you won't just lose your money. You will lose the opportunity to put him in prison." "He is my grandson," I shouted. "He is in a coma." "And he is going to be fine," Bernice said firmly. "The doctors say it is an induced coma to protect his brain from swelling. He is going to wake up. But if you arrive early and Julian escapes, Matthew will never have justice." Lorenzo hugged me. "Brother, if we lose now, Matthew suffered for nothing. We have to wait." I didn't sleep that night. I walked along the beach in Crete until dawn. Lorenzo accompanied me in silence. When the sun came up, I said, "I'm going back, and I'm going to make Julian pay for every tear of Matthew's, for every blow, for every second of pain." Lorenzo nodded. "And I'm going to make Oscar pay for every year he lied to me, for every time he made me feel worthless." The next day, at the Athens airport, already in line to board, Bernice's cell phone rang. She read a message, looked at me, and smiled. "Matthew woke up an hour ago and asked to see you." I collapsed in Lorenzo's arms, crying. "And there's more," Bernice added. "He told the police who hit him, 'Robert, your grandson is stronger than all of us, and he is waiting for you.'" The plane landed at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York at 11 o'clock on the night of December 14. I looked out the window. The city lights shone like fallen stars. Lorenzo squeezed my hand. "We made it, brother." Nick, sitting in the seat behind, leaned forward. "Ready?" I nodded. We were wearing the same suits we had left in, black, ironed, dignified. But now we looked like well-dressed ghosts. Ghosts who had returned from the dead to collect what they were owed. When we got off the plane and set foot on American soil, I felt something in my chest. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't relief. It was something darker, colder. It was a thirst for justice. And that thirst was about to be quenched. Bernice was waiting for us at the terminal with 2 rented cars. She hugged us. "Welcome home." In one car was her, Lorenzo and me. In the other, Nick, with 2 huge men, ex-prison mates of his who now lived in New York, working as security. "Just in case," Nick had said. We didn't go to my house. We didn't go to any house. We went straight to St. Jude's Hospital where Matthew was. It was midnight. The streets were empty. I looked out the window, recognizing every street, every building, every corner, my city, the city where I had worked 50 years, the city where my sons had betrayed me. Bernice drove in silence. Lorenzo slept in the back seat, exhausted from the trip, but I was completely awake. alert, ready. "Does Julian know Matthew woke up?" I asked. Bernice nodded. "Yes, but he doesn't know that Matthew spoke to the police. He thinks his son is confused by the blow. He thinks he is still safe." We arrived at the hospital, room 307. Bernice knocked softly. A nurse opened. "Family of Matthew Rivera?" "Yes," I said. "I am his grandfather." She let us pass. And there he was, my grandson, sitting up in bed, with yellow bruises on his face that were once black, with a bandage on his head, but awake, alive. He saw me enter. His eyes opened wide. "Grandpa?" His voice sounded hoarse. I ran towards him. I hugged him carefully not to hurt him. He started to cry. "Grandpa, I thought you were dead. Dad said you died in Greece, that you had a heart attack on the plane." I squeezed him against my chest. "I'm here, my son. I'm here. And I'm never going to leave again." Lorenzo approached and put his hand on Matthew's shoulder. Bernice and Nick stayed at the door. Matthew kept crying. "I missed you so much, Grandpa. So much." Matthew told us everything through tears. How one night he heard Julian and Delilah talking in the living room. How he went down quietly and heard them planning to sell everything. How the next day he looked in his father's study and found the fake documents, the deeds, the transfers, everything. Dad discovered me. He took away my cell phone. He locked me in my room with a key. 3 weeks, Grandpa. 3 weeks without leaving. He gave me food under the door. His voice broke. I tried to escape through the window. Delilah saw me. She grabbed me. I resisted. She pushed me down the stairs. He touched the bandage on his head. I woke up in the hospital. Dad was there. He told me I had fallen alone, that I was confused, that you had died in Greece and that's why I was like this. He looked at me with eyes full of pain. "Grandpa, they sold your house. They took everything, even the money Mum left me when she died. They are living in a new apartment in New York, with my money." Before going to the party, Bernice took us to one more place, my house, or what was left of it. Julian had already sold it, but the new owners hadn't moved in yet. We entered. It was empty, no furniture, no life. But I knew where to look. I went to the closet in the main bedroom. The box with Emily's things was still there, stacked in a corner like trash. I opened it. The Bible was there. I grabbed it with trembling hands, looked in the lining, and found it. A small, black USB stick. "Emily's evidence," I whispered. Bernice connected it to her laptop right there. She started checking. Her face changed. "Robert, this is pure gold. Photos of Julian in casinos, videos of him threatening Emily, debt documents. With this..." She buried him. I put the USB stick in my pocket. "Thank you, my love," I said to Emily softly. "Thank you for protecting me until the end." I held his hand. "Matthew, tonight we are going to Oscar's birthday party, and you are coming with us." He got scared. "Me? But what if Dad hurts me again?" I used a voice I had never used before, a cold, hard voice, without forgiveness. "Your dad is never going to touch you again. I'll take care of that. I promise you." Bernice approached. "Matthew, we need you to come. We need the police to see you there. We need you to tell your story in front of everyone. Can you do that?" Matthew looked at his grandfather. Then he nodded. "Yes, I can do it." The doctors didn't want to let him leave, but Bernice spoke to the hospital director. She showed legal documents. In the end, they signed a temporary permit. At 7 o'clock on the night of December 15, Matthew left the hospital with us, dressed in clean clothes that Bernice had brought, pale but standing, ready to see his father fall. Oscar's house was in an expensive neighborhood in Los Angeles, large, with a garden, with colored lights hanging on the trees. Music was heard from outside, laughter, people celebrating. We arrived in the 2 cars, Bernice, Lorenzo, Matthew and me in one, Nick and his 2 friends in the other. It was 9 o'clock at night. The party was in full swing. We got out. I wore my black suit, Lorenzo too. Matthew was between us. Bernice rang the doorbell. No one answered. The music was too loud. She pushed the door. It was open. We entered. The hallway was full of balloons. The living room was full of people. Waiters circulated with trays. There was a long table with food. And at the back, next to the window, with a champagne glass in his hand, laughing at something someone was saying to him, was Julian. My son. The man who had sent me to die. Someone saw us first. An older woman. She screamed. Oh my God! Everyone turned around. The music kept playing for a few more seconds. Then someone turned it off. The silence was total, absolute, as if someone had pressed pause on life. Julian froze with the glass halfway to his mouth. His eyes opened so wide I thought they would pop out. The glass fell from his hand. It broke on the floor. The champagne spilled like golden blood. Delilah, standing next to him, turned pale, white as paper. Oscar, the birthday boy, started visibly trembling. Lorenzo walked straight towards his son. I walked straight towards mine. Matthew was by my side. No one moved. No one breathed. Just us, walking through that room full of strangers. Ghosts who had returned from the grave. I stopped 3 feet from Julian. I didn't touch him. I didn't yell. I just looked at him. And with the calmest voice I had used in my life, I said, Hello, son. I'm back. Julian tried to speak. His mouth moved, but no words came out. Dad, we thought... I interrupted him. You thought I was going to die in Greece. I know, I read everything, I saw everything. The fake documents, the transfers, the threats to Emily, the messages about locking up Matthew. His face changed from white to green. I know you hit your son. I know you locked him up. I know you sold my house. I know you emptied my accounts. I know everything, Julian. Everything. I pointed toward the entrance door. And now they are coming. 2 police officers entered, then 2 more, then 2 more. 6 police officers surrounding the room. The police didn't waste time. One of them took out papers. Julian Landeta Robles, Delilah Sepulveda Torres, Oscar Rivera Mendoza. You have arrest warrants for fraud, counterfeiting documents, child abuse, and domestic violence. Delilah screamed. This is a mistake. I didn't do anything. It was him, she pointed to Julian. He planned everything. Julian looked at her, betrayed. The police put handcuffs on them. A woman at the party turned out to be Elsa Moore, the notary. They also arrested her. You don't understand, Julian shouted as they dragged him away. He is old. I just wanted to protect him. I looked at him. You hit my grandson. That is not protection. That is monstrosity. Julian tried to approach me. Nick stepped in, his huge hand on Julian's chest. Don't even think about it. The police took them away. Delilah screaming, Oscar crying, Elsa silent, and Julian. Julian looked at me. Before they took him out the door, I approached. I whispered something in his ear, something no one else heard. He turned pale. He started to cry. His legs gave way. The police had to carry him. I turned around. I hugged Matthew. It's over, my son. Everything is over. As the police cars drove away with sirens, Lorenzo asked me, "What did you tell him?" I looked at the floor. I told him that Emily told me everything before she died, that she told me he threatened her, and that now she can finally rest in peace, knowing that he is going to pay. Lorenzo hugged me. We cried, but not out of sadness, out of relief, out of justice, out of victory. 3 weeks after the arrest, the day of the trial arrived. The room was full. Journalists, curious people, people who had read the story in the newspapers. Julian, Oscar, Delilah, and Elsa Moore, sitting on the defendant's bench in cheap prison suits. They looked small, scared. Bernice was part of the prosecution team as an international fraud expert. When she took the stand dressed in her black suit, with perfectly organized documents, with her firm voice explaining every transfer, every counterfeited signature, every movement of money, I looked at her with pride. My sister, the sister I thought was dead for 30 years. Now she was there methodically destroying my son's defense. The accused planned this for 2 years. They used fake documents, corrupt notaries, and took advantage of the vulnerability of 2 seniors. This was not a mistake. It was organized crime. The judge listened, taking notes. The defense lawyer looked smaller and smaller. When Matthew was called to the stand, I felt scared for him. He was young. He had suffered so much, but he walked with his head held high. He sat down. The prosecutor asked him, "Can you tell us what happened?" Matthew began to speak in a trembling but clear voice. He told everything. The confinement, the 3 weeks without leaving his room, the food under the door, the attempt to escape, Delilah pushing him down the stairs. Suddenly, Julian stood up shouting, "My son has autism. He doesn't know what he's saying. He's confused." The judge banged his gavel. "Order!" He looked at Julian with contempt. "Your son is diagnosed with high-functioning autism. His cognitive ability is perfect. His testimony is completely valid. And you, Mr. Landater, are you going to keep silent, or will you be removed from this room?" Julian sat down. Matthew continued telling his story. Every word was a stab in his father's chest, and every word was true. When I was called, I calmly took the stand. The prosecutor asked me to tell my story, and I told it. All of it. From the Sunday Julian invited me to dinner, to the envelope with the tickets, to the Athens airport discovering that I couldn't return, to sleeping under a bridge, to eating from the trash, to the hospital where I found Matthew. I spoke for 40 minutes. The room was in complete silence. Some people cried. When I finished, I said something I had been wanting to say for months. I gave life to that man. I fed him. I educated him. I sold the little I had so he could study. And he tried to take mine. He tried to kill me far from home to keep my money. But he did not succeed. He did not succeed because I am stronger than his greed, because I have something he never had. Dignity. I got off the stand. Julian had his head down. He didn't look at me once. Julian's lawyer attempted a pathetic defense. "Your Honor, my client acted with good intentions. He only wanted to protect his father from bad financial decisions, typical of his advanced age. It is common for seniors to—" Bernice stood up, interrupting him. "Protect him? Do you call it protection to send a 78-year-old man to another country without a return ticket? Is protection emptying his bank accounts? Is protection hitting your own son and leaving him in a coma?" The lawyer tried to respond. Well, the circumstances—" Bernice interrupted him again. "The circumstances are clear. This was an attempted homicide by abandonment. They sent 2 elderly men to starve to death in a foreign country. And when the grandson discovered the plan, they beat him until they almost killed him. Is that protection? The lawyer sat down. He had no more arguments. He didn't even try to refute. The judge read the sentence in a firm voice. After reviewing all the evidence presented, this court finds the defendants guilty of the following charges: aggravated fraud, counterfeiting official documents, abuse of the vulnerable, domestic violence, and attempted homicide by abandonment. He paused. Julian Landeta Robles, 15 years in prison. Oscar Rivera Mendoza, 12 years in prison. Delilah Sepulveda Torres, 10 years in prison. Elsa Moore Sanchez, 8 years in prison. The room exploded in murmurs. The judge continued. Furthermore, the defendants must return all the stolen money plus damages and compensation calculated at $2 million additional. The properties are immediately returned to their rightful owners. He banged his gavel. This is one of the cruelest cases of family fraud I have seen in 30 years of career, and I hope it serves as an example to others who think they can abuse their parents with impunity. Final sentence. Lorenzo grabbed my hand. We both cried. While the guards took the condemned away in handcuffs, Julian turned around. He looked at me, and he shouted, "Dad, forgive me. I love you. Please, Dad." His voice was breaking. Tears ran down his face. Delilah cried silently. Oscar walked with his head down. Elsa walked in silence, accepting her destiny. But Julian was shouting my name. "Dad, don't leave me. I need you." I looked at him from my seat. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just looked at him. And in that look, I told him everything I would never tell him with words again. I told him, "It's too late. There is no forgiveness. There is no turning back. You are my son. You will always be my son. But you are no longer part of my life." I watched him until he disappeared through the door. Matthew was next to me. He hugged me. "Did you do the right thing, Grandpa?" I nodded, because I knew I did. After the trial, Bernice took me aside. "Robert, I investigated more about Delilah, and I found something you need to know." She took out some papers. "Delilah has a daughter. Her name is Lucy. She is 8 years old. She lives with her maternal grandmother in Miami. The girl doesn't know anything about what her mother did. The grandmother is a decent woman who works cleaning houses to support the girl." She showed me a photo. A girl with big eyes and a shy smile. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Bernice looked at me seriously. "Because that girl is going to grow up without a mother. She is going to grow up with the stigma of being the daughter of a criminal. She is going to suffer for something she didn't do. And I thought that maybe you would want to do something." I kept looking at the photo. "What do you want me to do?" "You decide. But I thought you should know that she exists." I put the photo in my pocket. For 3 days, I thought about that girl. A week later, Matthew and I traveled to Miami. We found the grandmother's house. It was small, poor, but clean. We knocked on the door. A woman in her 60s with a tired face opened. "Yes?" "Ma'am, I am Robert Landeta, Julian's father." Her face changed. You are..." "Yes, I am your daughter's victim." She started crying. "Sir, please forgive my granddaughter. It's not her fault. She doesn't know anything." "I know. That's why I came." We went in. The girl was sitting on the floor doing homework. She looked at me with those huge eyes. "Hello," she said shyly. "Hello, Lucy," I replied. I sat on the floor with her. Matthew sat down too. "Do you like math?" She nodded. "It's my favorite subject." I smiled. "My grandson, too." We spent an hour with her. She was sweet, innocent, intelligent. She was not guilty of anything. When we left, I told the grandmother, I am going to create a trust for Lucy, for her education, so that she doesn't end up like her mother. The grandmother fell to her knees, crying. She tried to kiss my hands. I lifted her up. Don't do that. Do it for your granddaughter. Make sure she studies, that she has opportunities, that she is better than us. She nodded, crying. I promise you. I promise you. On the way back, Matthew asked me, Grandpa, why did you help her? Her mum almost killed us. I looked out the window. Because that girl is innocent, and because breaking the cycle of revenge is the only thing that makes us different from them. If I had let her suffer for her mother's sins, I would have become the same as Julian. Matthew nodded. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, my son. 3 months later, a letter arrived from prison. It was from Julian. He asked for forgiveness. He said he was in therapy, that he understood what he had done, that maybe someday. I read it in front of Lorenzo and Matthew. I folded it. I put it in a drawer. Maybe someday, I said. But not today. Today it still hurts too much. That afternoon we went to the cemetery, Lorenzo and I. We brought flowers for Emily and for Lorenzo's wife. We put them on the graves. It's done, my love, I told Emily. They paid. Justice has been served. You can rest in peace now. A breeze moved the flowers. Lorenzo touched my shoulder. She heard you, brother. I smiled. I know. 6 months after the trial, I sold the Brooklyn lot. A developer offered me $15 million. I sold it. I divided the money into 3 parts. One for Matthew, one for me, one for Lorenzo. With my share, I bought a small house in Palm Beach, Florida, facing the sea. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen overlooking the ocean, a patio where I could sit and watch the sunset. Lorenzo bought the house next door, exactly the same as mine. Neighbors forever, brother, he said the day we signed the deeds. Forever, I replied. We moved in December, the same month that a year earlier they had sent us to Greece to die. But now we were not dying. We were living, truly living for the first time in years. Matthew decided to move in with me. I don't want to go back with Dad ever again, even if he gets out of prison. I want to stay with you. I enrolled him in a specialized school for kids with autism. He had a talent for math. The teachers were impressed. He started going to therapy twice a week. At first, he didn't talk much, but little by little, he opened up. One décidé. 6 months after moving in, I heard him laugh, truly laugh. He was on the beach with some new friends from school. They were playing in the sand. I watched him from the terrace and cried, because it had been so long since I had seen him happy. That night, during dinner, he told me, Grandpa, when I grow up, I want to study psychology to help other kids like me who were hurt by their parents. I looked at him. You are going to be a great psychologist, son. He smiled, like you were a great grandpa. Bernice visited us every month. She traveled from Crete to spend a week with us. We cooked together. Our mother's recipes that neither of us had made in decades. We talked about our childhood, about our father who died when we were young, about the things we didn't tell each other for 30 years. One afternoon, sitting on my terrace, watching the sea, she said something. Forgive me for not coming back sooner. If I had been in your life, Julian never would have been able to do this to you. I held her hand. Bernice, there is nothing to forgive. You had to save yourself first, and you came back when I needed you most. That's all that matters. She cried on my shoulder. I missed you so much, brother. I missed you too. but we are never going to lose each other again. Never again. Lorenzo was also healing. The first months he spoke little. He spent hours sitting on his terrace watching the sea. But little by little he started going out more, smiling more, living more. One day a certified envelope arrived. It was a letter from prison, from Oscar. Lorenzo opened it. He read it. His face didn't change. When he finished, he tore it into pieces. He walked to the beach. I followed him. He threw the pieces into the sea. The waves carried them away. What did it say? I asked. He asked for forgiveness. He said he loved me, that I was always his father. Lorenzo stood looking at the horizon. But I don't have a son, Robert. Oscar died to me the day he left me alone at that airport. He turned to me. But I have a brother, the best brother anyone could ask for. We hugged on that beach, two old men who had lost their sons, but had found each other. 3 months after moving in, Nick arrived in the United States. I got bored of Greece, he said, laughing, and I missed my favorite Americans. He decided to stay. With the money he had saved, he opened a small Greek restaurant on the boardwalk in Palm Beach. He called it The 3 Old Men. Lorenzo and I helped him. I washed dishes, Lorenzo waited tables, Nick cooked. The place was small but cozy, and the food was incredible. At night, when the restaurant was full, Nick told our story. How we met in Greece, how he helped us when we were on the street, how we returned to the United States to get back what was ours. Tourists listened with tears in their eyes. Some asked us for photos. You are heroes, they told us. We are not heroes, I replied. We are just survivors. One day I received a call from a journalist. He wanted to interview me for an article. I accepted. The article went viral. Then came more interviews. Television, radio, social media. Suddenly everyone knew my story. They started inviting me to give talks at senior centers, community centers, universities. I accepted all of them. My message was always the same. Don't let your children convince you to sign things without reading them. Don't let them make you feel like you are in the way. Don't let them treat you as if you were a problem. You built this country with your hands. You raised families. You worked your whole life. You deserve respect. You deserve dignity. And if someone tries to take it away from you, even if it is your own son, fight. Fight until the end. People applauded me standing up. Then they came to hug me, crying, telling me their own stories of family abuse. I listened to them. I hugged them. I told them they were not alone. 3 years after the trial, I made a decision that had been eating away at me. I decided to visit Julian in prison. I went alone. I didn't tell anyone. When I arrived, a guard took me to the visiting room. Julian entered. He had changed. He was thinner. His hair completely white, his face marked by years. He looked 20 years older. When he saw me, he started to cry. Dad, thank you for coming. We sat separated by a metal table. I didn't come to forgive you, I told him. I came to tell you something. I moved on. I have a new life, a new family, and I am at peace. I looked him in the eyes. And I hope you find peace too, that you use these years to understand what you did, to change, but it will be without me, because I already let you go. I stood up. Goodbye, Julian. Dad, wait. I left without looking back. Lorenzo was waiting for me outside in the car. How do you feel? I was silent for a moment. I took a deep breath. Free. For the first time in 3 years, I feel completely free. Lorenzo smiled. Good, because it's time for us to leave the past behind. We drove back to Palm Beach in silence. But it was a comfortable silence. The silence of two people who no longer need words to understand each other. That night we had dinner at the Three Old Men. Nick prepared his specialty for us. Matthew was there too. Bernice had arrived for a visit that morning, the five of us having dinner together, laughing, telling stories. And I thought, this is my family, not the family that gave me blood, the family that I chose. One afternoon, sitting on the beach, the Three Old Men and Matthew, I said something I had been thinking about a lot. I learned something in these years. I learned that family is not blood. Family is choice. Lorenzo is not my blood brother, but he is more my brother than anyone. Bernice was lost for 30 years, but she came back when I needed her most. Nick was a stranger in a Greek port, but he saved my life. And Matthew is my son, not my grandson. My son, because I chose him, and he chose me. Matthew hugged me. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, my son. Lorenzo and Nick toasted with beers. To the chosen family, Lorenzo said. To the chosen family, we sung. We all repeated. 6 months later, Matthew gave me a gift, a book, with a hard cover and golden letters. I wrote it, Grandpa. It's our story. I opened it. The title said, The Tickets That Never Existed. I started reading. By the 3rd page, I was already crying. Matthew, it's so that others know that you can survive, he said, that you can start over, that it's never too late. I hugged him tightly. I am so proud of you. Now I am 81 years old. Lorenzo is 79, Nick 75, Matthew 21, Bernice 55. Every day we sit on my terrace to watch the sunset. Every day I am grateful to be alive. I am grateful to have survived. I am grateful to have returned. Because Julian wanted to bury me. He wanted to leave me to die alone in a strange country, but he didn't know something. The seeds that you bury in fertile soil do not die. They grow. They become stronger. They break the earth and come out towards the sun. And I was a seed, an old seed, but still alive. And when they buried me, I did not die. I grew. Today I look at the sea and I smile, because I am at peace, because Emily can rest, because Matthew is safe, because Lorenzo found a brother, because Bernice came home, because Nick found a family, and because I lived again. And you? If you were Robert, would you have forgiven your son? Or are there betrayals that do not deserve forgiveness? Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I want to know what you think. If this story touched your heart, leave me your like and subscribe. Every week I share real stories of people who lost everything and got it back. Because surviving is not enough. You have to live again. See you in the next story.